I'm going to tell you a story today about a house that is on the market, and it's a 1960s rancher. There's a basement underneath that left wing there. And I'm going to tell you that it went under contract. I get caught in these sort of real estate transaction deals all the time, where a potential buyer has the feeling that there might be something wrong with the house, some foundation issues, maybe some minor cracking. This house has almost no damage. It is dated. It was built in the 60s, so there's probably a lot of updating to do. But as far as damage concerned, cracking in floors, above doorways, anything like that, there's very little. But the seller had an engineer come out. There was an engineering report about it. And so we kind of were called and asked for a second opinion, because engineers aren't always, they may be accurate, but they're not always right. Anyway, this is the house, and we're going to talk about it here in a second, but I just thought you'd like to see what a story is like, what a real case study, a real story is like. The house is about 2,400 square feet, upstairs, downstairs, basement, nice backyard, and we'll go from there. So I asked the seller's agent if they could provide a copy of the engineer report, and we read through it. And the engineer is there partially to cover the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario, usually in an engineer's report, is to pier the whole house. If there's suspected movement, pier the whole house. So the cost of that would have been $100,000, $120,000 to the homeowner who was trying to sell the house. And that cut into their proceeds pretty significantly. So I talked with the seller's agent about it, and I read through the objection report, which is typically how these things come about. An objection comes about by the buyer, and the buyer says to pier the whole house. They go for the whole suggestion that the engineer has written. And usually that's not realistic. And that ruins real estate um, because people don't understand it, because buyers don't understand it. They think, well, yeah, I guess that's what's got to be done. And then of course the seller will say, nope, we're not going to do that. And so as I said on my posts and videos many times before, there are different ways to skin a cat, and you don't have to necessarily go along with what a particular engineer report says. Now, I'm hoping that you're finding these videos informational. Man, I would love it if you would just punch the subscribe button, or write me a comment, or tell me if you've been in this scenario before. Comment back to me and tell me that, and tell me what your worst case scenario was. So back to the story. Neither the buyer nor the seller are knowledgeable about these things, so they have to go about what the opinion is that's given by professionals. Well, so they could have gone about getting, if they really, the buyer really loved the house, they could have gotten a second engineering opinion, and that opinion probably would have been different. In which case, now you have two opinions, neither one of them agree, so what do you do? And usually what happens in that situation is the real estate transaction cancels, because no one's confident about what sort of a plan should be put in place to excuse me, stabilize this house. Now, this house had almost no damage. You couldn't see any damage. There might have been a few hairline cracks in the drywall, but you did have a sloping floor in one room, and a few hairline cracks in the ceiling of the, I guess I would call it the TV room or the fireplace room or the great room. So it would have been exorbitantly expensive and would have cost the homeowner probably, like I said before, $120,000 to do a full perimeter piering. Okay, and so now what benefit do you think it would have been for the seller to have contributed all that money for a buyer who's buying their house, of what benefit do you think it would have been to the seller? Wouldn't have been any benefit at all to the seller except they'd be able to sell the house. So if it were terrible, if the damage was really bad and the whole house needed to be piered, really, really needed to be piered, then that's what you have to do. But in this case, you've seen the pictures. There really wasn't anything there that would be seriously considered seriously damaged or compromised. What benefit would that have been given to the buyer? Well, it would have given them a bulletproof, never worry about it again, fully piered house that they could then sell if they wanted to right away for greater value, for full market value, probably. At least in my experience, that's what I've seen. But it would not have been fair to the seller. Now, in this instance, does this house probably need to be updated? Somebody might want it modern, brand new, because it was built in the 60s and the appliances are outdated and so forth. Well, of course, but that's an expense that is not something that would be probably required under a real estate contract. I mean, every state has a kind of a different way of doing it, and every country has a different way of doing it, and these kind of rules don't always match up to everybody. But if you are knowledgeable and you are a member of Foundation Repair Academy, or you will comment with me and we can interact back and forth about these kinds of situations. This is extremely common. This hypothetical scenario that I just gave you is extremely common in real estate. And this idea of peace of mind, I just need peace of mind. It is for everybody. It's for homeowners, it's for sellers, it's for buyers, it's for investors, it's for realtors, it's for home inspectors. They all come across this situation if they're out actively in the real estate market. And foundations are a serious issue. So you have to come to some sort of middle ground that protects the person, protects their opinion, protects the realtor, that the realtor is not giving bad advice, and that some foundation repair contractor isn't giving bad advice, and come to some sort of conclusion that will suffice for both parties. And if that can't be done, then a full foundation support may be the answer. It doesn't usually have to be, but sometimes that's the case. Anyway, hit the subscribe button, comment, like, give me some sort of feedback as to what you like. I'm going to try to do more what you might call case studies or stories like this that you might identify with. And if you identify with it, please comment back. I love to hear from you guys. And thanks for listening, and I hope our information is